Broadcasting from various countries around the world using voice over IP technology, this is VoIPon Covered, a VoIPon Solutions UK podcast. I'm Kathleen Reed. Joining us today is Tim Joint, Commercial Manager for Aculab. Aculab provides IP and media processing boards, software, and gateways to the global communications market. The company partners with VoIPon to distribute the ApplianX brand of gateways in the UK. Thanks for joining us today, Tim. So, Tim, I'm aware of Aculab, but I've only recently started to hear talk of ApplianX. Is this a new product direction?
Well, ApplianX is a brand started by Aculab for the enterprise market, offering telecom appliances. The products are unique in the market because they're, by and large, single-purpose devices designed to address specific issues in specific environments, not only to simplify the design of the product, but also resulting in a much more cost-effective solution for both the channel partner and the end user's perspective. We think there's much less complexity with appliances than there are with competing products, which seems to make both the end customers and our distributors very happy, which is an important part when operating in today's channel environment. Specifically, ApplianX has two main products today, which are both gateways. There's a DPNSS to Q.SIG gateway, which is primarily for the UK market, and that enables legacy DPNSS-based PBXs and services to connect to other devices or services which don't support DPNSS, but they do support Q.SIG. So, for example, Cisco's Call Manager, that does support Q.SIG, but it doesn't support DPNSS, which is pretty important to get to if you want to connect to PBXs over here in the UK. The second gateway takes that a little further and directly into the VoIP world by converting any of our TDM protocols into SIP. These protocols can be, as we said before, DPNSS or DAS2 or perhaps the more standard Q931 in UK, or even MFCR2 or T1 protocols for other parts of the world.
So, Tim, are there any disadvantages of moving into a SIP-based environment?
Well, the early days of SIP were much like the early days of ISDN, where interoperability issues were a main factor. But having said that, I think today things have moved on a long way, and today, certainly with the appliance products, we're confident of being able to work with most other vendors' SIP implementations. One area of development for SIP still will be in the area of supplementary services. For instance, some features such as call transfer or divert have direct equivalents now within SIP, although again they didn't have in the early days. Although sometimes again those have also got more than one way to achieve those supplementary services. However, in other areas those standards are still emerging, so it's often possible to implement a feature by using different means. For example, our latest software release for appliance actually supports one of the very low-level features called callback when next available. So that means that you can actually, when you've got a PBX connected to one of our gateways, you can use some of those lower-level DPNSS features like that.
Does the move towards VoIP and UC affect ApplianX, given your obvious strengths in the older TDM-based world?
Well, Aculab have been involved in VoIP technologies actually since the very early days they started. So we also do have considerable experience in IP as well. It is inevitable that the voice market that we operate in moves further and further towards sort of being IP-centric, if you like. However, given today's financial climate, the old days of like rip and replace as a strategy to get into new technologies doesn't really hold anymore for a number of reasons. Users are very wary of new technologies, and they have more say in what goes on with those technologies being put on their PCs and telephone equipment. Also, there are many now poor implementations of UC and VoIP, where a migration strategy towards that would have helped by smoothing the transition and allowing a more controlled move into IP. And that's exactly the strategy that we had in mind with ApplianX. It's basically a migration strategy that allows companies to try and move into new technologies using proven products, but without having to throw away the not sort of inconsiderable investment within the existing PBX infrastructure. And another important related factor is the stark reality today is that most businesses need to gain the most out of their existing infrastructure as possible. So customers just don't have the resources to experiment for the sake of it with new technology. What they do need is a firm return on their investment, and ApplianX really provides that by bridging between the IP and the traditional old legacy TDM world.
How do entrants into the UC market, such as Microsoft and IBM, affect Appliance? For instance, how do you perceive Office Communication Server?
Microsoft or IBM, as well as all the legacy PBX vendors, all have the potential for prospering as the UC market matures, as things progress. The key, we believe, will be in delivering those capabilities in a way that's logical and palatable for those businesses, the end customers. I think most customers are really looking at slowly integrating the tools that come with UC today, and that's where we come in. For instance, we've worked very successfully with Microsoft on many voice projects over the last 10 years, including recently with Office Communication Server. And the same arguments apply there as with all UC offerings, really, is that in today's business world, it's unrealistic to move entirely to Communication Server without allowing for an integration path to the existing legacy PBXs that are already installed. And that's exactly where we believe Appliance fits today.
Thanks, Tim. What about SIP trunks? Can you tell our listeners if they offer cost savings, and does that remove the need for gateway products?
Absolutely. Again, it's almost an inevitable movement towards voice being carried as SIP between offices and remote locations. In fact, many larger corporate companies that we've been talking to, such as financial institutions, etc., they already have large data networks in place today. And a gateway, a SIP to TDM gateway, does allow them to connect their existing PBX into an IP-based data network. So there's no separate voice and data network required. The advantage of the gateway is that it allows a gradual migration and means that the PBX and all its associated functionality remains there for the users to benefit from.
Tim Joint is Commercial Manager for Aculab. This has been a VoIPon Covered podcast brought to you by VoIPon Solutions. For more information, please visit www.voipon.co.uk.